Good morning, everyone. I think I'm in a majority Jamaican crowd, and so I am sure I can say, God is good all the time. Awesome. So let me begin by acknowledging all the government officials who are here, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Chairman of the Jamaica Stock Exchange, General Manager, Dr. Marlene Street Forrest, and the entire team of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. And I think it would be appropriate at this moment to pause and give them a round of applause. Let me continue to acknowledge all current and future investors, titans of industries, members of the financial sector, all our international partners, and special mention goes to the 20-year veteran who travels miles to be here annually, none other than Greg Fisher of Jefferies, formerly Oppenheimer, formerly Bear Stearns, formerly. Glad you could make it again, Greg. We truly appreciate the support over the years. And in the event I missed anyone, no, before I go to that, I want to acknowledge my husband, Leo Williams. He's been with the stock market as well for many, many years. And now, in the event I missed anyone, let me say good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. So last night, after a really in-depth and excellent presentation from the Prime Minister, if I may say so myself, I was making my way out of the conference, but was stopped by a young female reporter and her cameraman, and she said, Minister Williams for International Financial and Business Services. The mandate is centered on stimulating economic growth and encouraging investments within the Jamaican economy. We want to encourage multinationals to establish entities in Jamaica, which will provide financial and business services to the export market and own assets in other jurisdictions. Efforts have included creating a robust and sophisticated legislative framework, formulating a competitive tax regime, and taking steps to ensure that the domestic market, relevant institutions, and agencies are fully prepared to ensure the center operates efficiently to take advantage of the ensuing opportunities and that our jurisdiction remains transparent. Again, I know it has taken quite some time to put the legislative framework in place, having had to ensure that we dot the I's and cross the T's with regards to the global AML CFT standards, which is the anti-money laundering, counter and financing of terrorism standards. But as a government, we've kept at it. And with the certainty that we have brought to the corporate income tax regime, you can see that we are committed to success of such an industry in Jamaica. Yeah, I hear a little faint clap. Yes, you can. So the Prime Minister gave all of us a comprehensive overview of the Jamaican economy last night and confirmed this government's commitment to fiscal prudence while pivoting to the next chapter of Jamaica's inclusive growth agenda, powered by Aspire framework. And just to remind you what Aspire means, the A in it stands for access to economic opportunity for all. That's the inclusive growth. Because if you recall, there was a time in the history, in the independent history of Jamaica, when we had certain industries that were growing robustly. We had GDP growth, 6, 7, 8, 9%. but it was concentrated in a few industries. And so when we talk about inclusive growth, we want to see more broad-based growth in Jamaica. So the S in Aspire would be safety and security. P would be people, which is human capital development. The I is the infrastructure development, not just roads, but buildings and communities and all of that. And of course, the Prime Minister stressed last night as well the reform of bureaucracy so that it becomes easier to do business. So he spoke to the ease, the speed, and cost of doing business. And then lastly, it's the economic diversification and new industries. And certainly, the stock exchange is an enabler of that. So how do we engineer sustained and higher levels of economic growth, which we all desire? Well, first, in my opinion, with the financial discipline we have embedded in the budget process, we have to ensure that Jamaica has the ability to recover quickly once we're hit by a natural or other disasters, because we know that these disasters subtract from our GDP growth and that it takes time to recover. So if you hear me dwelling on that, it is with good reason, meaning dwelling on what we have done to ensure that we have buffers in our budget process. It's because we realize that we are located in a hurricane-prone part of the world. No secret. But we've taken deliberate steps to ensure that Jamaica has financial buffers to allow us to recover quickly and build back better. I know all of you here understand that every year there's a hurricane season. But the important thing that a government can do for its people is to ensure that we have the resources to recover quickly and, as I say, build back better. So just a few days ago, I wrote a letter to one of our important multilateral partners who has been a partner in helping Jamaica build financial resilience to weather-related events in the economy. And so I said, "Dear President so-and-so, Jamaica has fared well in navigating the ever-evolving economic landscape following the global upheaval caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Over the past fiscal year, Jamaica has achieved notable economic milestones, including enhancing fiscal resilience, continuing the downward trajectory of the public debt to gross domestic product, and improving the investment environment. Key economic sectors, particularly tourism, continue to perform well, exceeding pre-pandemic levels and driving balanced growth across the economy. I am sure you recall that the country's creditworthiness has been further validated by the upgrades from Standard & Poor's and Moody's, signaling increased international confidence in Jamaica's financial stability and fiscal policy. And I want to remind you that there was a landmark liability management operation in the third quarter of fiscal year 23-24, which was the issuance of an oversubscribed Jamaican dollar-linked bond in the international capital markets. Who ever thought that Jamaica would get to that point? First of its kind within the Caribbean community. And this success bolsters Jamaica's debt management capabilities and showcased its increased credit desirability. But despite all the work that we have done, it can be wiped away in an instance by natural disasters. All of us here this morning know this. And so in this regard, the government must maintain and continuously improve the country's strategic, multi-layered disaster risk financing suite of instruments in order to mitigate the fiscal impact of natural disasters. And if this does not sound sexy to you, it really gets me going. Because when you have to think about budgets and the risk to budgets, it's a comfort to know that we have this plan in place. You know that the recent Category 4 Hurricane Beryl in July last year was followed by Tropical Storm Raphael, which was followed by probably the longest period of daily rains ever. But despite all of that, despite all the natural disasters in 2024, I'm here today to let you know that yesterday I took to Parliament a supplementary budget to the end of this fiscal year, which will end on March 31st, 2025. And we are projecting a balanced budget for the fiscal year 2024-25 in keeping with our fiscal rules of having a fiscal balance of 0.3% of GDP. And we also expect that by the end of this fiscal year, which will end, as I said, March 31st, 2025, that our debt to GDP will fall below 70% to 68.8%. We have to go back to 1996 to see this kind of low for the Jamaican economy. And so this morning, my word for the Jamaican economy, the Jamaican people, and Jamaican businesses, my word is resilience. We've taken a lot, but we've been able to recover quickly and move on. And we could not have done this without having the National Natural Disaster Risk Financing Policy. And I know I brought one slide to show you on this, or two. It is in place. It's one thing to write a policy, but it's another thing to fund a policy. And I want to tell you that this policy has been significantly funded by this government. We have experienced and demonstrated the wisdom of having cushion to our budgets. So we have certainty regarding our response in times of disaster. So that is just a screenshot of the page at the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. If you go there, you can read all about our National Natural Disaster Risk Financing Policy and how we structure it. So disaster risk financing is about putting in place a menu of financing instruments that the government can readily access to respond to natural disasters. And this should give all Jamaicans, all investors in our stock markets, persons and entities looking to invest in Jamaica, it should give them comfort that the government has this ability, the built-in buffer to our budgets to give us the ability to respond swiftly. And so this disaster risk financing utilizes the concept of risk layering, because no single financial instrument, if you could put up the other slide, can efficiently address all the risk. Risk layering and timeline of funding needs are the fundamental concepts underlying the policy. We consider the frequency and the vulnerability of the event. So in this regard, the government can access different resources in order to build disaster resilience and provide financing at each stage of the disaster response process, because you know those stages are relief, recovery, and reconstruction. And with that slide there, it shows you exactly what we have in place. For low risk, meaning local floods, landslides, we have contingencies in the budget, reserves, annual budget allocation. We can deal with those. Those are local. We can allocate away from something that we can delay. We can make those moves at that stage, at that level, the low-risk layer. When you get up higher into the medium-risk layer, where you have floods, minor earthquakes, we have to tap into the contingent lines of credit. And then when you get even higher, the large earthquakes, the tropical storms, the hurricanes, like Hurricane Beryl, then you talk about insurance, risk transfer to insurance instruments. And in particular, we access the market for catastrophe bonds. Recently, twice now, we've done that. And again, for me, this is something amazing that I would not have thought Jamaica, sitting in the hurricane belt, would be able to access. But we've done it. We've utilized parametric insurance. As you know, ahead of time, it says, okay, if these conditions are met, then it's almost immediate, financing of that. So I'm taking the time again to go through this because I want it to become a part of your thought process as you think about Jamaica, opportunities for investment here, and what happens during those periods. How is the government situated to respond to disasters, which will inevitably happen in our part of the world? So back in May of last year, the World Bank settled a catastrophe bond issued on behalf of Jamaica in the amount of US $150 million. In the event of a named storm, insurance payout to Jamaica will be triggered once the storm meets the criteria. So on, this forms part, like I said, of the government's multi-layered disaster risk financing strategy. And we've since renewed the bond that was issued earlier, and the one in place right now is scheduled to mature in 2027. And of course, we will evaluate as we go along. And we continue to have a facility as well from the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, CREF, in addition to contingency funds and National Disaster Fund. Again, it speaks to prudence in our financial and our fiscal management, ensuring that we have a good foundation for debt sustainability and enable the Jamaican economy to, take comfort as we go through these adverse impacts. So, bottom line, the government remains steadfast on this path, especially in terms of disaster management and recovery. So I hope you walk away this morning with that in place. Looking forward, we have hope, a lot of hope, despite some uncertainties around global tariffs and other issues. And if you put up the other slide, we can, one of the reasons we have that hope in the global world is that according to the IMF, they are projecting that a record low share of companies is expected to be in recession in 2025 and 2026. And you can see the green is positive growth, and I did not choose the colors. The orange is negative growth. And of course, the last big orange line there in 2020, you know that was COVID. But look at 2025, 2026, you can barely see, negative growth. So that's a good backdrop for us here in Jamaica. The government is making significant strides in its commitment to strengthen the enabling environment for private sector development. We are big on digital adoption. We have an ambitious reform agenda to promote the development of the digital economy. You know, we have data protection laws in place in order to provide greater safeguards for the handling of the personal information of our citizens by requiring systems to be in place to protect data privacy and to create resources in case of failures or breaches by incumbent and future operators. And I know all about this because I piloted through the Parliament the Data Protection Act. And you know that we have been bringing the different entities online we've been bringing them into operation as of March of last year. So already we have 161 data controllers registered with the Office of the Information Commissioner, and the communication around it has been happening. Government acknowledges the essential role of a resilient financial sector in sustaining economic growth, fostering financial inclusion, and protecting against systemic disruptions. So in alignment with Jamaica's commitment to prudent fiscal management and economic stability, we continue to ensure that the legislative agenda continues as well. And I know I have a lot more, but I'm going to end here by saying that I can say with confidence that this government reaffirms its commitment to achieving sustained economic resilience and stability in the face of whatever global challenges there are. And recall that at the top of my speech, I said I wrote a letter to one of our international partners to continue partnering with us on our disaster risk financing pathway to build more resilience in our budget process. And I am sure, absolutely sure, they stand ready to help. And so I ended the letter, as anyone would do, by saying, yours sincerely, Honorable Fable Williams, Member of Parliament, Minister of Finance and the Public Service. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.